Fuck. All right, we're rolling.
Rolling.
Planet B
Presents.
Cult and Culture Podcast.
Welcome to episode 44 of the Cult and Culture Podcast. I'm Justin Pearson.
And I'm Luke Hinshaw.
This episode features Ruel from the band Jenny Piccolo. Fucking legendary band. I hate genres, but like people call them the original Power Violence band, but regardless, they are ripping. And he's just an amazing dude.
Yep.
I've known that guy for a long time at this point, almost 30 years. I completely love him. He's such a sick drummer.
I hope he doesn't. We were talking about this yesterday, and I hope, Al, you don't get offended by me saying this, but he reminded me a lot of like Chris Farley, and not like the sweetheart Chris Farley. You know, like there was a very different side to Chris Farley that, I mean, from reading the book. But he just had it and the whole, I was just like, God damn. Like, not in a bad way, in a fucking very, very, very good, loving way.
I mean, Chris was such a genius. But it's funny because there's this footage of Jenny Piccolo playing. Actually, there's a bunch of footage of that. If you see Al playing, especially when he had moppy hair, like big hair, and he's so animated when he's playing, it seemed like some of Chris Farley's skits, just like spazzing out. And you know, Al's spazzing out on a drum kit at a BPM that's just incredible. And not to diminish anybody else that he's played music with, but when he played drums and Jenny Piccolo, it was really about the drums. It was so insane to watch that guy play, and he was one of my favorite drummers. And he is hilarious.
Yeah.
Like fucking hilarious.
Yeah, always on.
There's this clip of the show I went to, but it's online, where he's like, Jenny Piccolo is playing the Huntington Beach Library. I think we talked about it in the podcast, where he's like, you know, this is one of my favorite places to play, blah, blah, blah. The primary function of this library is to check out a book. So everyone check out a book. And then he just goes and sits down and just fucking goes to town.
That was great.
What a great human being. And so he was in town for some work stuff, and I was able to grab him and bring him, you know, get him to come by here to the studio, and we knocked this out, and it was such a pleasure. I don't get to see him that often, and when I do, it's awesome, and I'm so grateful for his friendship and for so long. And if you're not familiar with Al and his work, check out all of his bands. Not only Jenny Piccolo, but Noothgrush, and then he has this new band, Night Toilet.
Night Toilet.
Yeah, which is really awesome, but it is really hard to figure out.
I'm still trying to figure out what a night toilet is.
I don't know.
I mean, he explained it a little bit, but I'm gonna just leave it.
Yeah, it's a cool name. But the record, he gave me the LP, and it was a double LP, and it has like, you don't know what it is. Like if you didn't know, you wouldn't know. So I was like, how do you find it online? He tried to explain it, and I'm like, yeah, this is. We might put a link in the description to this podcast.
Yeah,
because I don't know how else to explain it. But if you're not familiar with Jenny Piccolo, you should check it out. Specifically their live videos on YouTube. They're just such an incredible band at the time. Better than most of the stuff of that era. Anyhow, we hope you enjoy this. We'll see you on the other side.
Yep.
Hey, I'm Al Ruell.
Yeah. You want to talk about your resume, your musical resume?
My musical resume.
Come on.
Where to start?
You tell me.
From the start.
Man, I was in a band for a week. Skip that one. And then like some older friends said, "Hey, why don't you come play for our band?" And that band was called Woolly Mammoth.
Okay.
A pop punk band from Northern California. John and Cindy, like each about 5 years older than me. They're like, "Come." I was 15. Come play in the band. Played in the band.
Yeah.
And we they already had a 7-inch. We did another 7-inch, went on tour. And I was, I think, 16. And then right around that time, Jenny Piccolo started, like friends of friends, bands break up, and then Jenny Piccolo.
So you were 16 at Jenny Piccolo's start.
Wow.
Well, if you do the math, that would be about like 94. I think I was a little bit older. 16 going on 17.
Uh-huh.
And but all that time seems like it was years, and I think it was like 1 or 2 years. But
when you're only alive for 17 years, everything seems a lot longer.
Yeah. So Jenny Piccolo came about because I was friends with this band called Mohinder, and they broke up. They blew up. They kind of imploded like they did on stage all the time. And I looked up to them. I thought they're all great musicians.
Yeah.
It was like hard to imagine being in a band with anybody from that scene, because it's like, oh wait, there's already way better whatever I do. I played bass, and then I barely started playing drums, and it was like everybody was like, you turn around, they're like all really good and good bands. Where are you gonna fit in? But like I said, with Woolly Mammoth, like people that were 5 years older than me were just like, yeah, come be in our band.
And you played drums in Woolly Mammoth? Or bass? Bass. Wow.
Bass.
Okay.
And like I said, the band I was in a week before that, they kicked me out within a week because I couldn't play. Because I couldn't really, we tried to do an Ego cover. Remember that?
Yeah.
Briefly, Mike Bullshit was in a band.
Yeah.
After Go called Ego.
Yep.
And we tried to do a cover of that song in this band called Allure that I was in for a week. And I got kicked out because at our first show, which was a week after we started the band, like I couldn't remember the riff, and it was really terrible. The drummer, who's one of my good old friends, Jeff Pinn, he had these rototoms they were just stuck in the bass drum, and he played them, and they would spin. Like, that's not how they're supposed to rotate.
Yeah.
That's not what rototoms are all about. But Jeff was in Jenny Piccolo too at first. So, and then there was this band called Three Little Indians, even before Jenny Piccolo, and maybe before Woolly Mammoth. That was with the guy who kicked me out of Allure, the other guy from Allure, and me on bass again, but we didn't call it Allure, and Allure was still a band, and they call it Three Little Indians. I think you would have liked that band if you heard it, because that was like
might be a problematic title.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, and we knew that then. In any case, Woolly Mammoth, Jenny Piccolo came about because Jeff Pinn and I again we wanted to try another band.
Yeah,
and the Mohinder guys had broken up. And like I was saying, there's no room to fit in a band with like musicians. Like, I thought James was like one of the best drummers around.
Yes.
He was in this band called Stumpy before. That was killer. I was like, I think I even asked him, like, what am I going to do? Yeah. And he's like, well, I don't want to play drums. I want to play bass.
Wow.
I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I'm going to be in a band with one of my favorite drummers and I have to play drums?
Yeah, that's a fucked up position to be in.
And I think I'd had a set for like 6 months.
Really?
Yeah, maybe a year, maybe a lesson or two, a few lessons.
Fuck.
Damn.
And he's like, yeah, I'll just show you the Mohinder beat, and we'll just
yeah. But you made it like brutal Mohinder beat.
Yeah.
Do that. Is that like it has like it's like a what is that beat? It's like it's got swing.
It's not the Mohinder beat. It's like a San Diego beat.
Eniac Arrow.
Yeah, like it does have swing because you pick up the cymbal on one of the. It's not just duka.
Yeah.
It's like duka baka baka duka baka baka.
Yeah, I wonder who fucking. I bet.
I remember we used to talk about it with what's his name from Unbroken.
Oh, Steve Miller.
Steve.
Yeah.
And he was like, he thought it came from the Chain of Strength drummer. And if you go back and listen to like some of those songs, it's on there. But it's in all those San Diego bands too.
Yeah.
You just hear that.
It was the best beat.
Yeah.
Because it was brutal, but like dancey and like fun. I don't want to say dancey, but like something like that.
Yeah. It just was. It opened up the beat a little bit. It opened things up. I think I think it's got a lot of swing. And then I started to hear it everywhere I turned, and then I wanted to be like, I want to do other things too.
Yeah.
Because Mohinder was Mohinder.
Yeah.
They were great. They were like this, time bomb.
Mohinder was like the weirdest sounding band because it almost seemed like if you, because this is like total, there was no digital recording era yet, so it was like, it felt like, and I listened to it, the like all the riffs were like high pitched and weird, and the beats were so tight and had that, it was like almost like electronic music, like kind of like Melt Banana maybe or something. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it was almost like absurdly fun.
Well, James was an incredibly tight drummer. Like I said, like he was just super, and stumpy too. It was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
And he used, I think, for a while, a piccolo snare, which I don't like anymore, but they're really like bright sounding. And it just sounded all real snappy.
Yeah.
Octave chords on the guitars.
Because there was only like not much Mohinder stuff, but that Gravity 7-inch was insane.
Yeah.
And that was like the wildest shit, because I think there was Eniac Arrow and I don't know, like maybe not Click Attack, but like Heroin and stuff. But then when the Mohinder thing came out, I was like, oh, this is from another planet. This is like fucking light years away. It seemed so strange to me.
You guys thought that?
Oh, it felt fucking crazy. Like when you listen to it, I mean, obviously Gravity was like such a cool label too, but there was like, there was the level of whatever, and then there was Mohinder, which you're just like, what is this? Like it was almost, again, it just seemed like from another, maybe not another planet, but like another country. It seemed Japanese to me. Like, I don't know. It was weird, like, I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe because the songs are like shorter. Yeah, maybe.
And it was all like high, like these high notes, like all the riffs were like, whatever. And
I actually never really thought about like how different or was or whatever. I just thought they were fantastic. They were great.
Yeah. And then, you have people screaming in a higher registry and everyone wearing like extremely tight pants and shit, so there was like, it was like brutal, but not like Infest or Crossed Out. It was like very stylistically delivered in like this strange way.
My favorite thing is they used to put like tapestries on their amps. They had these like beautiful, like, like the velvet paintings you used to get.
Oh yeah.
But the music was good too.
Yeah. Well, you want to keep going after, because I want to talk about how I saw it.
So Mohinder broke up, and it was like a sad thing. Everybody's like, fuck, that's way too fast.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, people drift or whatever, and Clay and Albert were off doing something else, and I guess Jeff was in touch with James and said, yeah, we want to start this band, and we'll introduce you to this guy, Chris, who's Chris Story. And I didn't know Chris. Chris was a skateboarder that maybe I'd like seen around town skateboarding and stuff.
And he was pro, or like almost
semi-pro, yeah.
Which is like another thing that's fucked up. Like
he skated with Maple was the company at the time, and Mark Johnson was like the badass around town that was pro and was Chris Story's like best friend.
Yeah.
So I didn't know Chris at the time, but I knew James, and Jeff was like my best friend from high school. I was like, yeah, we're gonna start a band. What's it gonna sound like? Oh, it'll sound like the San Diego bands. It'll sound like Rorschach. It'll sound like I don't know,
Yeah.
whatever we said at the time.
Yeah.
James had introduced me to Crossed Out. They had a distro called Unleaded, or a label and a distro called Unleaded. I think they put out the first Mohinder 7-inch or whatever, and I used to just like thumb through their 7-inches. And James was like, you never heard Drop Dead? He's like making fun of me, like the little whippersnapper.
Yeah.
So he got me into that stuff, the fast stuff. And so then we decided, we'll try something. It's like, I'll teach you that beat.
Yeah.
So he did.
So the show I saw, was that your first? That was the band's first show.
No.
Okay.
That was our first out of town show.
Okay.
I can't say how many we had for sure before that. Maybe a few. Not that many. Yeah. I wonder if we'd even played Gilman at that time. You'd have to get James in here on this video to like correct me on all
He'll never
the mistake in history or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know the details. That was our first out of town show. We bought like a 1958 van and drove
it
down to
was sick.
Santa
I remember
Barbara.
I remember the van.
And the van died
Yep.
after the show,
Yep.
the day after the show. And we rented a U-Haul to get home.
And you played to like 8 people, you know. You fucking, it was like the crazy, like we did the craziest shit.
Yeah, and I got the best bumper sticker. It was like was there a bookstore associated with the cafeteria? It was on the UCSB campus, and I got this bumper sticker that said, "I'd rather be smashing imperialism."
They had those here.
Put on my bug.
Yep. It was like.
Can I get another one? Is the bookstore still around?
I don't know if it's. You can get them online. Just Google it. Yeah, I'd rather be smashing imperialism. They had them like at this bookstore that was affiliated with the Che, and so everybody had those. Like my first car when I was 16 had that sticker on it.
Somebody scraped it.
Yeah,
off
me too.
Of my bug.
Yeah.
I lost it. I used to get honks like people. Anyways.
Yeah. That's funny. I had the same bumper sticker.
That show was definitely our first out of town show. I don't know what we were expecting or whatever, but we want to go to Goleta.
Yeah.
Goleta.
Yeah.
Got to play Goleta.
Yep.
So
Well, Ebullition. So,
Yeah.
and Kevin McClard and stuff.
And there's a band from San Diego going to play with us. Cool, because we all love this, all that whole scene.
Yeah. You're talking about Guyver 1.
Guyver 1.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. So I lived with some of those guys, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna go to Goleta to like play this show with the new Mohinder band." And I was like, "What? There's a new Mohinder band? Like, what happened to Mohinder?"
I wonder even how that got around.
It was the new Mohinder band. So I just remember like, it's crazy. Like I went fucking 4 hours to see a show. I'm not playing. I'm not gonna go for fucking 4 hours. But I was like, yeah, let's go. I want to see the new Mohinder band.
And were you disappointed that the new Mohinder band was made up of one person from Mohinder that didn't even play the same instrument anymore?
Okay, so yeah, like you guys set up, and I was like, oh, that's the dude, the drummer. And I loved everybody. And I thought everybody in Mohinder was great, but I was like, the drums are insane. And I had, was like, oh, he's playing bass? That's fucking weird.
Because you saw Mohinder?
Yeah, once. And then like seen photos or videos or whatever, So I was like, or maybe I didn't even see videos, but I was like, dude, that's crazy. He's playing bass. This is gonna be terrible. And then I remember you guys started, and I was like, "Holy shit, dude! It's like brutal Mohinder. Like it was like another level. It was just, I don't know because
did Jeff play that? Did we have 2 guitarists?
I don't know. I want to say no, but I just remember being fixated on the fact that James wasn't playing drums and that you were, and I was like, "Who's this other guy?"
Yeah.
And you were so animated, and I think that was like. A great aspect of like maybe what I was expecting because like James was so sick, but he was so like he'd play with posture, kind of, and you were just like a Muppet, and I was like, whoa, the guy's so crazy, like he's so wild, and then I remember just my only
animal,
yes, my only criticism was like it was over in a matter of minutes, and I was like, dude, I came 4 hours for this shit, and it was like maybe 6 minutes.
Probably that was the only Mohinder like aspect that we fulfilled for you.
And I was like, cool, whatever. Like it was probably one of my favorite 6 minutes of music up to that point. I was like, this is incredible. It was great, dude.
It must have been pretty sloppy at that point.
Probably, but I don't think it wasn't like I was like, "What's those notes?" I think Chris is playing the wrong note. It was just like, "Whoa, dude!" It was like you got punched in the face for 6 minutes, and then you guys were like done, and you're like, "Thanks," and everyone's like super cool and nice, and I was like, well, "I don't know what that is," but the new Mohinder band, Jenny Piccolo, like you guys got to come to San Diego and play a show.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember. I mean, I remember that show being fun. I'm not sure if I was doing that silly thing where I put the jumper cables on my drums.
Oh no!
You never saw that?
No.
Those guys hated me for doing like silly stuff like that. But we met you. Yeah, we met you, and I think you even that day like asked us to do a record. Because you were getting the Locusts together.
Yeah.
And kind of, I think you're only a couple of years older than me. How old are you?
48.
46. I'll be 47 this year. But it did feel like, hey, this like older kid you look up to actually gives a shit about what you're doing. Like, why the hell like I was saying about those woolly mammoth friends that I
Yeah.
have that are like 5 years older than me, or like they'll give you a chance even though you suck. That's how I felt that night. Like, hey,
Huh.
people just like want to, do stuff.
Well,
and that
I didn't know
make things
Mohinder.
happen.
I didn't know Mohinder, but they were on Gravity, and I felt like, and all those people were my friends, but I was like, man, Gravity Records is so cool. And 31G had just started. We had, because the split was number 4 or fuck, was it 4? Anyhow, it was like number 4, I think, or something. So I was like, oh, it's the new Mohinder band. I wish Mohinder was on my label. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's this other band that's like way cooler. I mean, not I want to say way cooler, but as cool as Mohinder. And I was like, you guys do a record on my label. And I was like, I'm gonna fucking make my label cool like Gravity,
Yeah.
And it worked out.
I don't think we were thinking too much about it, right? Like, yeah, we'll do a record.
Yeah.
Yeah, no
And
shit.
Because back then you would do any, like we were,
Yeah.
you'd just be like, yeah, sure. Someone else
And
gonna pay
then-
for this.
then we heard or saw, I think we came back to San Diego soon after and played a house show with Locust. Like we saw you guys soon after. I'm like, holy shit.
I think we played Fiesta Grande.
Yes, that's true. Probably that's the first time I saw you, which was a wild set with like that.
Because we played right after Fiesta Grande in Cupertino with Charles Bronson.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Jenny Piccolo played or not. But I remember like
No.
Clay was there and like everyone was there. But yeah. But what was I gonna say about that time? Well, because also the Locust was a lot different then. We were five piece,
Yeah.
6
Big band.
something. Yeah, whatever. Not the Locust that we toured with together.
Yeah. I think I toured with or saw like 3 different versions of Locust at least.
Yeah, at least 3. And then so it's funny because when you guys so there's this thing that's like ingrained in my brain. When you guys came to San Diego, I don't remember. I think you had played the show and then stayed the night in San Diego at my house maybe, because I remember in the morning, or I just remember like leaving my house. This is like the Golden Hill house. I remember leaving the house
course.
to go to work, and I didn't really know you guys very well, and I just saw you taking Chris and like body slamming him, like, and I was like, whoa.
In the morning.
Yeah, what is that?
I'm gonna
Oh,
have
it's
to
you.
take your word for that, man.
We'll be
that's My
back.
cousin lives in Carlsbad,
Oh,
and we're hanging out tomorrow. Sorry.
no, it's all right.
At the zoo.
So the body slam happened, and I was driving away being like, what the fuck is that guy doing body slamming his bandmate? But then like Chris got up and everyone was very jovial, and I was like, this is crazy. And then it turns out that you were a 3rd degree black belt.
Yeah.
Or
Well, I
sorry.
did Taekwondo. I
Yeah.
think probably after that I got the 3rd degree black belt at some point, because I probably still had long hair then, and then I cut it when I got my 3rd degree black belt.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Sarah Kirsch told me that I lost my power. I was like, oh shit. I don't think she meant it that way.
What power?
but
Drumming
she-
power?
I think she, yeah, like I think she maybe thought I risked things by
Huh.
doing that.
Wow,
'Cause
that is a trip. I remember
it's
that.
a
Yeah.
joke.
Yeah.
Well,
It wasn't real, but it was a joke.
It was so your your body slam of Chris was
From
very,
Taekwondo.
was very well, to me it just looked insane, but I guess it was like I guess it was safe, and he knew what he was getting himself
Fools,
into.
like hanging out at my house.
It was great though. I was like, oh yeah, those are gonna be some of my best friends.
On tour in Detroit one time, we were playing that. Remember that basement show? It was in Detroit, the Hamtramck House, I think.
Oof.
Yeah, it was July 4th.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna be able to remember the story. Right, Inhumanity was the name of the band. We played with
Oh, they're
Inhumanity
so good.
and like a dozen other bands.
Yeah.
And that cat and I was doing
Is Heroes Gone played?
Taekwondo lessons again in the street, in the middle of the street.
Hmm.
I think it was me and Jimmy were sparring in the middle of the street, and I had cords on,
Yeah.
and a blue T-shirt, and Jimmy had tight pants on and a blue T-shirt, and we were fighting in the middle of the street, kind of like Chris and I were or whatever in your house, and the guy from Inhumanity guys runs out in the middle of the street. And He breaks us up, and he goes, Stop, guys! You can both wear the blue shirt.
Oh, so he was like in on it.
Yeah.
Oh, was it the singer?
Yeah.
That guy's a character
I'm
too.
trying to remember his name.
Chris
Chris.
Pickle. Yeah, that guy is so funny. He was like a male stripper.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. So Jenny Piccolo happened. That was so fucking crazy. It was like the craziest shit. And there was this thing that you guys are like that you became very well known for that's not musical, and that is like your stage banter.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of, I've seen a lot of shows, so it seemed almost like part of the performance.
Yeah.
Because off stage when we were all in the van together, it didn't happen quite as much.
Yeah. I mean, I look back on that and I'm a little bit embarrassed by it. I think it was mostly me being like kind of obnoxious, like teenager, but also kind of like poking James and Chris for trying to be so cool.
They were very serious.
They were serious,
Yeah.
you know, and I was not. I was not. And in fact, you know, things started going downhill when I got serious at some point.
Wow.
I'm just joking. But yeah, I mean, you know, it was fun.
It
for
was
me.
so much fun.
So I would like go to the mic. Drummer's not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
And say stuff and you know, try not to be that band that just like turn their backs to the audience, or try to like,
Because those two guys turned their backs.
yeah, just try to take control a little bit, you know.
Well, it is kind of funny because I think, I mean, obviously, I don't think any of us at that age ever knew what we were doing or what it would like amount to, maybe. But when you look back, like to me as a fan and a listener of Jenny Piccolo, it was obviously really brutal music, and they were really short songs, like sometimes like 15 seconds. But then you would be like this brutal blast, and then it would be like, I'm gonna shit talk James or Chris, you know, and like it would be so funny, and then all right, you know, and you're like, whoa, and it was like this like, you know, polarization of two things happening at once, and it was such a great live performance.
Yeah. I think that it wasn't a shtick, but I think like I did my thing, and then they had to like give me a hard time for it because that was like their thing. So people thought that we were fighting. Maybe there were a couple fights.
There was one where Chris quit.
There were a couple fights.
Chris quit and was going to take a Greyhound back. And we're like, let him go. Fuck him. You know, but like he didn't go or whatever. Because like we couldn't afford it. Like, it was like, how's he going to get back on a Greyhound? Like from Toronto or whatever, you know?
Yeah. There were probably a couple real fights, but mostly it was just like we were having fun.
It was very bad for Chris and James because I felt that we were like sister bands, so we were always on tour with you guys, and everyone in the Locust was like, these guys are fucking hilarious. And we would kind of like egg you on, fight a little bit about this thing, because none of us would like have that kind of banter. We tried it and we're like, this isn't gonna work.
No,
like,
you were actually cool.
No. But we just had a different demeanor. But I think like a lot of times, like at least me, I was kind of like, fuck, I wish I was on Jenny Piccolo. That shit's so much cooler than Locust. But you know, I mean, it was.
You were.
Cool.
You sang on a song with us on our that record.
Yeah. But also too, like, so Jenny Piccolo had this like really serious like political edge to it, very like, but like kind of artsy. Like it was unique and not like it wasn't like a Drop Dead or a Crossed Out album where it was just like, here's the fucking world grinding you. It was like, here's some kind of like highbrow political message, and then we're gonna be brutal music, but when you come see us live, it's gonna be like a fucking comedy show.
Yeah. I think some of that dynamics was intentional.
Yeah, which is really good.
Like, I was thinking like you get to people in different ways, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Because you think about like Rorschach or like we were all, you know, like, or like Downcast or something, like they were very serious and you couldn't like fuck around. And it's nice to have the message and also be able to fuck around.
Yeah.
I think it translates better.
Yeah. Yeah, those bands that can do it well and do it with humor, like I don't know, like Born Against and Men's Recovery Project always blew my mind.
Yeah. yeah, the Sam McFeeters realm always was able to embody that. Yeah, it is. So it's like it's got this like highbrow element to it, but like not serious, which I think is so cool. Not many bands can achieve that, in my opinion. So, what did you do after? So Jenny Piccolo did its thing, and
well, yeah, Jenny
toured
Piccolo's
the
great.
world.
Like you put out records for us, and we toured with your band three times, Europe too.
Yeah.
And should like I was saying last night, we should have gone to Japan, but I went to college. and I think
What a
you called
mistake.
me, and like Chris Dodge called me at one point, and I'm like, no, I think the band's broken up. I don't think I can play this Lapaham Fest. I don't think I can go to Japan. I know I can't. I have finals, and I still regret that.
Japan and a Slabaham Fest. I mean,
Yeah.
Slabaham Fest was like a Gilman show, but
Yeah.
like that's legendary shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I finished up college on the other side of the coast. Before that, I was in Noothgrush for a little bit.
Yeah, playing bass,
Playing bass.
Yeah.
In Noothgrush. That was a kick.
which is in the realm of like the stuff we were all about. or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah. Except, I mean, Noothgrush was like, they were down with all the Slap a Ham
Yeah.
scene and like a doom metal thing, which I wasn't too familiar with, but came to really like, and I actually really came to appreciate totally different and more types of music because of association with them. They were like a lot older. The guy Russell that I was in a band with, he saw Sabbath when I was in the womb. And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And they were, our practice studio was like next door to the Sleep guys, who were like San Jose legends
Yeah.
and stuff. And like, I don't know, just kind of got into that scene quite a bit,
Yeah.
like that kind of slow music. And so I was this hyperactive kid, very evident in Jenny Piccolo, I think,
Yeah.
And then suddenly I'm playing bass in this.
But
teen
you were in
band
both
with
of them at
a
the same time, or
older-
no?
Yeah, pretty much
Yeah.
the same time.
Yeah.
That I left Noothgrush. They didn't break up. I left Noothgrush right around the same time that Jenny Piccolo broke up for the
Oh,
same
yeah.
reason. And I was
Damn,
going away to
dude.
school.
That's crazy. So, what happened after that? That was it. I mean, for a while.
Yeah, after I went to college for 2 years in DC, finished that up. I met people there. Like that's the thing music does for you
Yeah.
is whichever town you
Mhm.
toured in, you might still know somebody there, and you say, and like I've called you before and talked to you and told you where I'm going, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, do you know
So-and-so.
so and so is
Yeah.
in Philadelphia? Do you know so and so?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit. So then like I met up with Jason Hammaker in DC.
Yeah.
Some other cats from the West Coast moved out to DC that I became friends with, but then I met people at school that were into music just because, it's the scene, right?
Yeah.
And so some of my best friends from there are all musicians as well. And we had small bands, not touring bands. One was called, these guys were in a great band called the Early Humans.
Uh-huh. Which is
like-
that a
That's a
reference of
great name.
it's a Men's Recovery Project reference, right?
I was going off about the Men's Recovery Project, like with those guys
Yeah.
that I'm talking about, my friends.
Yeah.
We were loving that band.
Yeah.
If they named it for that,
Yeah.
I have no idea and I don't even remember that Men's Recovery Project reference actually.
You know that it's that video that Matt Anderson put out on Gravity.
Oh
You ever seen that video?
no.
Ugh, we should probably splice it into this podcast. It's so good. It's
I
like,
also need the Bull Eyes Over Basra 12-inch. If you got an extra one, dude, I'd send that my way.
I don't have.
I
an
need
extra one.
that
I do
fucking
have it.
record.
There's this video compilation that Gravity put out that has a short movie that Sam made, or Sam and Neil, I guess, made,
Yeah.
and it is the best thing ever. But
I
they
gotta
talk
check
about Early Humans in it. It's probably online somewhere if you look it up. It's black and white, and it was on there's like a Gravity thing. I think. I don't know if there was like two different volumes, but The Locust was on one of those things. But
Yeah.
anyhow, the short film thing was great, and it also not to riff on Men's Recovery Project for too long, but like it made a band something else because they're like, oh, we're gonna make a movie. It was kind of like Residence, I guess, or something. Where,
Yeah.
like that would be like what they would do, where there's a film that goes along with them, so there's not just a band that you
Yeah.
listen to.
They were not just a band to me. Remember, I mean, the show that Jenny Piccolo played with them at the Huntington Beach Library.
Yeah. So wait,
can you list the band names for me? Because my memory is...
Yeah.
I remember it as being like VSS, Jenny Piccolo, Man is the Bastard, Men's Recovery Project, but that may be two different shows.
There was a Thrones, Clickatat, Jenny Piccolo thing, Man's the Bastard. It was actually Man's the Bastard and Clickatat for sure, and Jenny Piccolo. Okay. But there was also a VSS, Men's Recovery Project, Jenny Piccolo. Okay. And both of those shows in itself, it's just fucked. like
those are two good shows,
dude. At a library, you're like, this is some
myself
shit right here.
Excluded. Those were two good shows, and I was very, very, very psyched to be playing both of those, and especially with the Men's Recovery Project. And Sam, I think, came on with like a half sweater, right?
Yeah,
and a rubber band on
children's
his face,
sweaters.
And like there was
John Skritza had
drummer had a high heel on his strap. And
like, what band
they played all the hits?
What band that's like really good decides like, I'm gonna just strap a high heel to my face while I play this set? But that night or that day or whatever, or that night, our friend Mariko accidentally unplugged something, and this was like early electronic music.
Oh yeah.
And it fucked up whatever sequencer they were using, so they couldn't use any samples because they were a regular punk band that was sonic instrumentally and like merging into like electronic music. And then they were like, there's in the video footage, Neil with his fucking leather gimp mask is like, fuck it, we're going traditional, and then they just played like the punk songs without all like the weird synth shit.
I don't even know what they played, but I'm sure I wanted them just to play that whole like Gravity 7-inch in its entirety.
Oh
man.
yeah.
That's right, I'm a normal man. It's a paper record until you do better. Don't waste my fucking time.
I think that like, Sam is awesome, but Neil Burke is a really good friend of mine, and I think that those two people are just fucking geniuses, and they took punk and hardcore kind of like what I feel like Jenny Piccolo was doing, and like, very fucking again. Righteous and serious, but like, we're gonna also make some jokes, and still hate the world and fucking hate like Nazis and shit or whatever, and like we're still gonna like
Men's Recovery Project, like aren't like Trumpers trying to achieve that right now. Aren't they really worried about the state of men's affairs? Like
completely.
Like, Sam McPheeters was making fun of them 30 years ago.
Yeah.
He rules.
I mean, even that first 7-inch where it's got like someone having an abortion or something. I don't know. Yeah. Not first 7-inch because they were anyhow. But back to you. Your drumming is insane, dude. Like you just like fucking did it. Like that's it.
Yeah. I've been playing for like a few months, and I had, we played, like figured out a style, tried make it swing a little bit, but then James taught me that beat, and I'm like, oh, I can do that. But then I put a little thunder meat behind it.
Thunder meat, definitely.
Thunder meat.
Because a lot of bands of that, like, what do you want to call it, like grindy or like whatever, grindcore, it's always like the same, or like a D beat, like, oh, every song has a D beat, every song has some kind of blast beat. So like in that time, everyone had that gravity beat or whatever you want to call it. But like you brought it, you kind of, to me, it was like, oh, I'm hearing Antioch Arrow and Napalm Death mixed.
Well, yeah, my innovation was to play two different beats that I really liked and put them together.
Which was like those two
wasn't
worlds.
My innovation, but definitely wanted it to be. I mean, I think it's just that our influences, right? Like James played in Mohinder, and they liked some of like the emo hardcore a lot, and I did too.
But everybody loved Crossed Out all the time.
I loved Crossed Out, and I was really getting into the power violence and Man is a Bastard and Crossed Out, and James or Chris really liked like the German stuff, like Lucifer's Mob and Acme and the kind of Rorschach stuff. I think Rorschach is enough. That band was so good, but so that really metallic, talented thing, I think, fell out. Like the Rorschach, we couldn't do that.
I mean, Chris couldn't even tune,
right? But we could. We thought we could, and then we ended up sounding like we could. You know? But yeah, I just played loud and fast, and I didn't like I'm not the type of drummer that thinks like technical is better than feel and power. I was kind of like all about hammering away, and
but there was technical something in that because it was so precise. There was so much the nuance of the beats were just I don't know. You as a drummer, like the hit is not just like a hit; it's the hit every time. You know, I don't know. But I remember, so like because this also goes into like we used to have this discussion of like the U.S. and the European blast beat, right? And we would like not argue, but like debate, like So there's like the blast beat with the snare and the hi-hat together, and then there's the snare hi-hat, snare hi-hat, snare hi-hat.
Yeah.
You
asking me?
You were the European one, right? Is that what you were?
European was all together.
No, that was the U.S. one.
No, I don't know, man. I can't.
Whatever.
I can't
a blast
put
beat
flags up on these things.
Yeah.
The one I played was back and forth.
Yeah.
But I tried to play it so fast that you couldn't tell.
Yeah.
It was just a buzz.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as far as I know, I think that was like Mick Harris too, like Napalm Death. He did it way faster than anybody else. If you ever heard those Peel sessions, it's totally insane. But I think he did the back and forth. But then
because Dave Astor
everything together.
Yeah, because Dave Astor was the drummer at the Locust at the time, and he was all about this.
Yeah,
the two together.
Yeah,
you know,
and I could never really do that. And I've heard people say, "Oh, it should be one way or the other." I could never do everything in the same time.
Yeah, I mean, people that say it should be this or that are usually assholes.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Whatever you were doing was fucking great.
Yeah, but I also think just rolling. You can it has a little bit more swing and feel to it when you're going back and forth.
So you're like in the blast and you'll do a fill and like come into it and there's just seamless non-stop
more expression.
beating.
And then use the cymbal a lot.
Yeah.
Get the windmill going.
The windmill is where you can hit the floor tom, right?
If you just hit that crash like double time every once in a while, then it's like I don't know how to describe it actually in drumming terms, but I played back and forth.
Yeah.
And
never double kick.
Cheating.
That's a funny one that always comes up with drummers. Yeah. But you have an extra foot, you could do it, right?
For the hi-hat? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta have that.
Dedicated feet.
Okay. All right. Because we grew up with.
There's no shame.
Let's give a shout out to Dave Whitty.
I couldn't do it.
Give a shout out to Dave Whitty because he was the
the
master
best drummer
of single
that style.
kick. He would his foot would be sideways and it would just. We would go watch Dave Whitty who would play just to see his fucking foot go.
Yeah.
So fast.
Yeah, I remember. Dave Astor introduced me to that record. He's like, "Oh, have you heard the Discordance Axis?" And he put it on the car. It was probably one of the times that we didn't have either Crossed Out or Black Sabbath on in the car because we let somebody else sneak in there, and he snuck in Discordance Axis, and I was like, "Oh, holy shit!" And then I found it at the Columbus Fest, the first record, and then the second one came out, and I was super psyched. I think that's around when I stopped listening to grindcore. Like that, I mean, hearing bands like Discordance Axis, Locust, Naked City I got into. I mean, they were an older band, but I got into, right? And I'd already loved Napalm Death. Is like, what else is there to say?
So you're saying that was your departure from grindcore?
No, it wasn't. We kept playing music, but I heard bands like that, and I'm like, do I really? How much more do I need to hear?
Yeah. To me, I was always wanting something that was unique. I mean, like at the time, Crossed Out was so unique, but there was so many bands that were a lot like the other bands, like Infest or maybe Drop Dead or something. They were all they were all great. They were all like the first, but then there was like so many of them where I'm like, I still feel like where were the ones that were that just stood out, that kind of came out of the gates doing something unique, and that was. Like Discordance Axis was for sure one. Also, it's like you're a weird three-piece, and the singer has these dueling vocals and with himself, and then there's one guitar player who sits in a fucking bench or a chair or stool.
I didn't think I liked fast bands with like slow guitar parts.
The blasting, or it's just like dun,
I thought the guitar should be going that fast too, like Napalm Death, and then Discordance Axis, they didn't sound like that. And I've mentioned that to Dave before, and Dave was like, "But we had slow guitar parts." I'm like, "You don't count, dude. You guys reigned."
Yeah,
because it was so creative, because it sounded so different.
Yeah. So to me, I think like Discordance Axis seemed like almost a more like more brutal, violent version of Mohinder, because it was almost like absurdly written. You're just like, oh yeah, that's not like real music, but like in like this piece of art that's happening sonically. Does that make sense?
Dude, I've never thought of that before, but I don't know what their influences were.
Yeah.
But I actually see the connection, like a grindcore. I think like the art level and the musicality of it, and that's.
Or like
it's on that level for me,
like
for
chords
sure.
and like weird tones, and I don't know. Yeah, there are so many like informative bands happening at that time.
Part of why I liked it so much. Yeah.
Yeah, and we Jenny Piccolo and Locust, I think, played with Black Army Jacket, which was Dave Whitty's band. Not Discordance Axis, but still a great band. Yeah. But it was, I remember just like, Dave Astor lost his shit when he met him, and I don't think Whitty was like prepared to talk to Dave. It was just like, whatever, kid. Because like Dave Astor was doing shit like wearing weights on his ankles all day long, because he wanted to take the weights off, and then when he'd play, it'd just be like super fast, because it's lighter or whatever. That's weird and cool.
He's putting in the work there.
Yeah. You remember?
I'm not lifting weights to play drums.
Day training.
No matter what. I'll just like sacrifice a little bit of speed, but I'm all the power to him.
Yeah, it was it was crazy to watch him. Like, we went to like a Target or something, and he bought these weights, these strapped on. We're like, and he just wore them all day long, and then took them off. I mean, I couldn't tell, because I'm just like, oh yeah, it's still like the same tempo, but he was like jazzed by it.
He was a rad drummer.
Yeah,
he
still
is.
Yeah, it's insane. So shifting from the drumming, it was funny to be on tour with you, because I knew you. I've never seen you fight except for the fake shit, but I would fucking mouth off the people going like, Al's right here, dude. So like,
thanks, thanks. You want me to cover you?
I have such a bad attitude, and there was so many times. But I remember we were at this mall in Cleveland or Columbus or somewhere in Ohio.
After we watched Independence Day.
Yeah. Oh, you remember that?
We took a day off.
We didn't take a day off.
That's the only time we went to the mall.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And we how did we end up watching a movie in the middle of the day?
Yeah, especially that.
Know. Yeah.
And it was, it was because it was a holiday, I think.
Oh,
because
July
I remember
4th.
Like everything was closed.
Was
I don't know.
July 4th.
That seems crazy.
And we saw Independence Day on July 4th, too?
That just seems ironic.
Makes sense.
There was, I don't know.
I remember we all walked out of this theater, and like we had to have looked insane, and they're just like, "You guys are fucking faggots," and I was like, "Oh my god, really?" But I was like, "Well, yeah, look at us. All of us look insane." And so I was like, "Man, fuck you guys," and then I started talking shit, and I was like, "Al." But we all just had to run, dude. It was like they were gonna fuck us up.
That happened a lot. You remember in Joplin, Missouri, if you cross the road in the crosswalk, the cars would speed up to get you.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Because of the way we looked and shit, right?
Yeah. But they got hit by a tornado. Joplin, Missouri. I'm not sure it exists anymore.
For reals?
Yeah, it got hit by a really bad tornado.
Oh. There's a movie about a mall there. Joplin Mall. It's insane. I think that's what it's called. I wish I knew the name of it. It's great. But I heard a story that Jenny Piccolo was on tour, and you guys were at Denny's, and a Nazi skinheads tried to like fight you guys.
The Denny's story might be something different.
So there's three Jenny Piccolo.
Jenny Piccolo per se. No.
I heard this. The legend goes there was 3 people in Jenny Piccolo at the Denny's, and there were 3 Nazi skinheads, and James and Chris were fighting 1, and you were fighting 2.
Who did you hear this story from?
I don't know.
It wasn't anybody from Jenny Piccolo. I'm pretty sure one or more of the Jenny Piccolo guys were there. I was there, but it was a show outside the Cupertino Library where remember like you were saying earlier about like in San Diego, you would have some occasionally nefarious creeps in the early 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Was that, maybe we were talking about it last night. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
like in the late 80s, I think was a lot crazier than like 1994 South Bay area.
Yeah.
But like, Nazis and stuff used to go to Gilman Street or whatever.
Well, like what was it? 87 was like the height of White Air and Resistance.
Yeah.
Which is in Fallbrook.
Yeah.
Tom Metzger's bullshit.
Yeah.
So all those motherfuckers were all over California.
That's like before my time. I'm quite sure you were a full-fledged punker at like age 12 or
It was
whatever,
bad.
and you were there.
It was
right?
terrible.
But
all those hanger-oners.
there
yeah.
were still some people
Yeah.
trying to like be like that, and a couple skinheads showed up to a Cupertino Library show. I want to say it was Woolly Mammoth that played, and yeah, I think it was, because me and John and Cindy were there, and I had John had his bass amp, and at one point used that to like
Bass
or
amp?
his guitar head.
Oh.
Oh no! That sorry.
That's fine.
I'm misremembering that.
Uh-huh.
I think the skinhead punched John, and John dropped his amp or something, and that's when I jumped the skinhead.
So it was just one skinhead?
No, there were two,
Okay.
and there was like several of us.
Yeah.
And so
Oh, it's cool. So
once the big guy got resolved by me, the little guy got taken care of by like 4 to 5 girls that were hanging out, and like two other people. Skateboards were
yeah.
thrown. And,
God, my
but
story
it wasn't
was
a Jenny
great.
Piccolo fight.
My story was like that I
Yeah.
heard was like the three of you fighting 3 skinheads, and you were taking on 2, and then Chris and James were fighting 1, and you fucked up the 2, and then you had to go over and take care of the third one.
No.
I'll just edit it to where he says, "Yeah."
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. After some of that stuff I've seen, I wouldn't put it past those guys and you. Fucking James, man. Like, I love that guy, but he's like, he won't ever come out. He's just like way into EDM now, and I mean, whatever he's into, I'm sure it's like the best shit, because he's fucking killer. He's such a great guy, and everything he was into is always really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I love that he like
Video.
Yeah, like electronic dance. He's like really into DJ stuff, like
drum and bass.
drum and bass. Yeah, like
Drum and bass. I haven't listened to too much of it,
Yeah.
but
he like puts
I
out
love
records
that all
and
of a sudden
shit.
he's just like, this is what I'm gonna do, and
Yeah.
he does it.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, I haven't seen him in years, but that's because when I do go home to the Bay Area, he's more like in the Sacramento area.
Yeah.
now. And Chris, I haven't seen in years either. But
You and James, it's so crazy to me that like you were such prolific drummers and you don't really drum much.
well, James does. He plays drums and bass. And I play drums and bass too.
I know, but
I've always played drums and bass.
he
plays
I'm
drum and
talking
bass.
about the brutal shit. I love everything both of you guys have done outside of the brutal realm, but like
Yeah.
the brutal realm is like, it's fucking the best. It's the cream of the crop. You guys don't fuck around.
Well, when those early Humans guys, like, we were, they were more like punk, but like kind of indie rock, math rock, kind of like real smart math rocky band. I was kind of into that stuff around that time. Like Afterman is the Bastard and stuff. I got into like Don Caballero and
Yeah.
I don't know, Prog Rock and King Crimson and whatever. But so I looked up to those guys because they were good musicians, but they were buddies. And I was again stuck in this situation where it's like everybody around me's in a good band, and I'm just like this hangout dude. But then and this guy Jordan, who's again like 5 years older than me, but became one of my best friends in DC. He was always like the singer in the band, like let's start a joke band or a Danzig cover band, and he writes these hilarious lyrics and shit. And so Matt from Early Humans was like, let's start a band. We'll call it Dove. And so we called it Dove. But then there was another big band called Dove, like the Floor Guys or whatever. But Dove was just we only never recorded anything except for maybe some demos or recorded some live shows. And that was, they were like, we want to start a hardcore band with that let's play to Al's strengths or whatever, and we started a hardcore band. And
Wow.
it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that's who I'm in a band with today, is those two guys.
You want to
There
talk
was-
about that band?
There was another cat, Mike Marin, rest in peace.
Yeah.
died of brain tumor that played bass in Dove, and
He also played
the
in something
bassist
else, right?
from what's that?
He played. I feel like I know him.
Mike Marin.
Yeah.
He played in this DC band called the Ruby Dare.
Huh.
I don't know if you would know him.
Yeah.
But they were a great band. So yeah, I mean, everybody kind of goes their own ways and does their different things and starts families and careers and whatever. But yeah, we're in a band now.
You want to talk about that? Because it says not. It is, you're not. I mean, it's a much different kind of band.
Yeah.
It's. What would you? I mean, I don't know. It seems like more like Noothgrush, maybe. I wouldn't compare it or anything, but
no,
yeah.
but there's no genre. You know?
Which is great. I mean, when was there ever a genre? I mean,
Yeah.
you know.
You know, I could name it. There's a lot of influences and I could name genres that people coin stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't really have a rehearsal place. Two of us live in the same town and could practice, but you know, like he's a lawyer, so we don't practice that much.
Yeah.
And we both have kids and
Adulting.
and he's sort of never been. He was the guitarist in our band was the singer who made up joke lyrics in all the other bands before.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he didn't play guitar in any band before,
Oh.
but he does now.
Without a mic, so no more jokes.
No more. No, yeah, and I play drums, and this guy Matt, who's probably the most talented musician of all of us, sometimes plays something, but mostly he stopped collecting instruments and records, and he just buys microphones and he records us. He has like all this killer modular stuff,
Wow.
and every time we play, we just roll in.
Yeah. So the record you put out one.
We have two records.
Okay. But it's
the
all
most recent one.
It's
is
all
called
improv jam shit, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It's all improvised. It's all kind of in the heavy and atmospheric kind of things. Like I think I started listening to a lot of more or less like psychedelic music and a lot of like avant-garde or avant rock music in the late 90s, early 2000s, and that's sort of been what we've collected since then is all this weird stuff. And yeah, we improvise, and we don't write songs, true, and we hardly practice. So when we get together, it's just like about your taste level and like the magic kind of happening,
sure.
you know, a little bit, and just keeping the record going.
You just
we have to slice and dice because there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff that you don't want to
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, ever hear again.
That's pretty wild.
We just try to get different instruments. Like I made Matt like go get me a gong one time, and like they have like some Moogs, and they bought some pedals from you know, the Bastard Noise like pedal guys. What's Nelson?
Oh yeah. Drogotronic.
Trogotronic.
Yeah.
So they like to make a racket. You
Yeah.
know? And the first record was pretty much just the two of them recording, and when they lived in Brooklyn, lived really near each other, and they recorded guitar, noise machines, and occasional drums. Usually when a friend like me came to town, and on the first record there's one song with me and our dear friend Kevin O'Meara, who passed away, who plays second drums. Actually, I had to sit back and just watch Kevin play and just like try to get in a beat here and there because Kevin was such a badass.
Wow.
He was the bassist in Early Humans, but he could play anything. His dad was like a professional percussionist, like, you know, like those crazy, I don't know if they're xylophones or whatever they are, the huge ones. And Kevin could just pick up an instrument and play anything like his dad.
That's incredible.
And so bass to drums, and I think he ended up playing drums with Dan Deacon or stuff, and he passed away. Our recent record, much of it was recorded in his memory. We went to the studio one day. We got to play some music for Kevin.
Whoa.
Maybe like our records are recorded over a long period of time because we get together every few years. So the first one came out, I think, 2013 or 14. And this most recent one, it's called Ethiopia Plaza de la Transparencia, which is a like a subway station in Mexico City where my friend lived for a while when he was in Mexico City. One of the songs recorded in Mexico City, which is like 10 years ago he lived there. So it's just over a long period of time we collage things together, and then at sort of when we think we've got enough, we then start fighting about everything. Like, what are we going to include? What are we not going to include? What do we want this to sound like? And what's the order going to be? And then put out a record.
Yeah.
So Ethiopia Plaza de la Transparencia is the first one that came out a year or two ago that that I play drums on.
And you can't get it, right? Or can you order it online?
Oh yeah, you can get it.
You can? How?
Yeah, it's on Bandcamp.
Okay.
What's the name of the project?
That's a good question.
That's what everybody's waiting for.
So the band is called Night Toilet.
Oh. Yeah. So avant-garde.
I mean, if you want,
What is a
if
night
you wanted
toilet?
to call it knocked urinal, like there's other ways to say.
Yeah.
Like you could call it Don John if you wanted to.
But what is a night toilet?
It's a bit of a pun. It's
You
just-
let the sun go down first.
It's a really embarrassing name. you know?
Yeah.
But
What do your daughters
like
think
I
of that?
said, I don't know whose fault it is because I wasn't in the band from the beginning.
Oh yeah.
But the guitarist, like he used to write the funny lyrics for the bands, and somehow those two jokers came up with Night Toilet. And unfortunately, if we wanted to break up the band, we could, but you can't just fucking change the name.
Yeah.
So
It's very
on
men's
the
recovery
Bandcamp
project.
page, it's just a symbol. It's just a symbol.
Yeah. So what's the URL?
What do you mean?
It's just a symbol, like
Oh.
Bandcamp / what?
Yeah. I've even tried searching Night Toilet. Like, I don't think anybody can ever help us because,
And also,
You
your
can't
record
search
doesn't
it.
say anything on it. Like that was
Yeah.
I remember I played it for someone. They're like, "What is it?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Dude, I don't really even know."
yeah, you could never ask our friends to like help us out with it because it's not even, we couldn't even market it.
Oof.
Sorry, dude.
No, it's great. I think it's crazy to think about like that record and then like Jenny Piccolo. It's just it's like so polar opposites. But I love
Yeah.
that because I feel like all of these artists that you've been referencing, a lot of them have been talented with multiple instruments, and I think that's maybe that's the one thing we could take away, being able to like morph as this instrument to this instrument, and also have humor and have I don't know, not take yourself too seriously or something. Maybe you'll do like the most prolific stuff for I don't know, like ancient aliens to revisit, and be like, what was all this shit they were doing,
Yeah, I think this band, right? Like one of the guys has said, I think they did tour before I was in the band. They toured like Tahiti
What?
and New Zealand. Like,
Wow.
yeah, they went there and they got these like small orange amplifiers. Like, I don't know if it was the
Tiny
Tiny
ones,
Terrors
yeah.
or whatever. And they like their first show was like they got off the plane in Tahiti and like set up on the sidewalk and played
Wow.
some noise.
That's fucking cool. That's cool.
They recorded it and stuff and like went around, I think in New Zealand too, or part of Australia. And one of the guys' buddies is in this band called Japanther. Have
Oh
you
yeah,
heard
yeah,
Japanther?
yeah, of course. Uh-huh. What's
Somebody in
Ethan?
that band is
Ethan?
related to somebody who's in my band.
Ian is the singer of Japanther. Yeah, great band.
Yeah, somebody in that band is related to somebody in my band. And so they took him around and they did I want to say they played Spain too, but I think it was just Australia, New Zealand.
Yeah.
But now, no touring, no live shows.
Yeah.
Just record and see if it is good.
But what'd you do? You played Joplin. Or like,
What's that?
You played Joplin. Or,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
like
I would like to go on tour. I'd like to be in a crazy band too, but I haven't.
yeah.
I wasn't like the prime mover in all these bands that I played in. It was like,
Little do you know. I mean, no offense to Chris and James, but like you were the shit in Jenny Piccolo. And you were also like very.
but I think they were more the doers, or they met people like you that were
Yeah.
like real doers. I had a lot of shit going on,
Yeah.
school and taekwondo and bands
Yeah.
and being
I feel
Crazy.
like when we had Tad from Crossed Out on here, it was really funny because I felt like he was very hesitant to talk about Crossed Out. Like I was like, we just wanted to talk about Crossed Out.
I'm not hesitant to talk about Crossed Out. Let's do that.
But it's funny because I was, and we were talking about this last night. But I feel like if Crossed Out played right now, it would be like people would just lose their shit because they played like only 16 shows or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe even less than that.
Yeah.
And then it became this like folklore of
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And but like I feel like a lot of people did see Jenny Piccolo, but I feel like if that was to happen again, it would be something. I mean, it's so weird. It can be very tacky to get a band back together, but it would just be so sick to see it again because the people that haven't left this planet would like to see it again. You know,
Well, it almost happened
I
thanks
know.
to you, and I
Yeah.
actually really wish it. Part of me really wishes it did happen
for that
because,
Unbroken reunion, right? Is that what you're talking about?
It was a Swing Kids reunion.
Swing Kids
I'm pretty
Unbroken
sure.
and something, yeah.
Yeah. And was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was gonna be with Swing Kids.
And Undertow and Festival of Dead Deer ended up playing.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so rad.
And Portraits of Past.
What?
Yeah. You fucked up, dude.
Failure. Well, I was practicing the drums and practicing the parts, but then it all fell apart because James got in a car accident, and ever
Yeah.
since he's had like a lot of problems with his limbs.
Yeah.
I don't know what else.
All
is
you have to do
behind
is
that,
just
but just
do that. Yeah. I'm sorry. That was very insensitive. I love James, and I'm glad he's doing better. But I'm always like, come on, dude, come
Yeah.
on.
I
When you're
know.
doing the turntable, it's cool, but like, get up on the bass and fucking do the thing, or drums, or whatever. You know, do something. Yeah.
I part of me really wishes we had done it because it would have felt so great and whatever. But
Yeah.
we couldn't. We didn't. We couldn't at
Yeah.
that time. And then part of me says like some things can just be left.
Yeah. Yeah.
Left
It's
back
cool.
then, you know.
Because I've seen bands get back together, and it is fucking sucked. So,
I mean lately I'm loving it.
yeah.
Like Unwound got back together. That's rad.
Yeah.
I heard Clickatat's gonna play a show. That's
Yeah.
rad.
Yeah. Well, you're holding out for what, Born Against and Men's Recovery Project, which will never happen.
Right.
There you have it. That was episode 44. We'd like to thank Al. We'd like to thank all of our sponsors. We'd like to thank Ruinous Media, you for listening or viewing this.
Yep. Andy, Becky.
Yes. And I don't know, all the other homies, everyone that's been rad. It's been cool to kind of like be branching out and constantly meet new people and also working with new people.
Yeah, meeting rad people.
Yeah. The next episode is going to be insane. I hate when people are like, this thing is going to be awesome in the future. But like, I'm pretty sure the next episode is going to be fucking insane. So check out our previous episodes. Check out our future ones in the future when you get there. And we appreciate you, love you, and share and hype and like and do all that stuff if you feel inclined.
What's the next one?
Later.
Late.
Cult and Culture is a Ruinous Media podcast proudly sponsored by Earthquaker Devices, Heartwork Coffee, Diodario, Fender, Smashed Plastic Record Pressing, and San Diego Food Shed.
Planet B.